Howdy, folks. This is Daniel Meeks, and I will be reading excerpt number 4 from the book First Sight by author Chun Jing-Yuen. A female slave greeted us upon entry, and we were led through finely carpeted areas filled with wondrous, though unfamiliar, artifacts and artworks. The chatter of the guests reached us before we arrived at the banquet hall, and upon our entrance, we were given the same intrigued scrutiny we received at the port. There were at least 200 men and women. The women wore variations of the same garments that Lady Haluna had on, the kind of clothing our women only wear during spring and summer. It was too cold for such a style of dress during the other seasons. I looked over at Tara and sensed that she felt a smidge overdressed for the affair. I laughed and nudged her. "You can always tear your sleeves off," I teased. We were in polite company, so I was sure she would not make her retort physical. Wrong. She kicked me under her skirt. Solun snickered. I laughed again. "You look beautiful," I told Tara. "Not one of these women has anything on you." Tara turned sideways to regard me, and when she found no signs of sarcasm, fought back a smile. It was then that I noticed several more pallid faces amongst the crowd. Were there people from the Serpent Coast here? Upon further examination, no. Their heads were elongated from the hairline up, long domes at least a few hand-widths high. This could not have been a hairstyle, for a few of the men had cut their hair so short that they were mere bristles, with the skin beneath visible. Their hair ranged from red to blonde, much like ours, but I knew of no such people along the Serpent Coast. There were giants and other races, but nothing like this, to my knowledge. My cousins and I traded looks, all wondering the same thing. I glanced at Father, who was laughing away with our host couple. If he had noticed, he did not show it. "Eat," Lord Marinta encouraged. "The royal family always takes a while." And so we did. The banquet was a disorganized affair. The homettes ate reclining in little groups. There were the main banquet tables, but they offered no place to sit. The servants traveled amongst groups of guests, offering dishes to any they passed. We were shown to friends of our host couple, lords and ladies, regional governors, captains of guard, and priestesses. I soon learned that the large-headed people made up about a third of the people gathered. They also seemed to wield greater power and influence than the majority. Their titles were more important sounding, at least to my ear, and they were treated with a mixture of awe, fear, and certainly respect. "His Majesty, King Isotep," a servant announced, half an hour into the affair. The entire hall rose from their seats to face the rear entrance of the hall and bowed. Our group followed suit. When we raised our heads, I saw the man whose arrival had elicited such a response. Standing at the top of a short flight of steps was another of the big heads. His hair was white and tied into a ponytail that fell out of view. He had a huge, squarish jaw that was lined by a thin, well-trimmed beard. He wore a fine, emerald-green shirt that was deliberately parted in the middle, like a cloak without the hood or sleeves, except that it reached all the way to the ground. The torso it revealed was that of an old warrior, aged but still powerful. Besides his white trousers was an elaborate, curved sword. He smiled and nodded. The crowd then returned to their business. I turned my attention back to the young woman I had been in conversation with. "Your king, how old is he?" I asked. 55 this year, I think," Kara replied. She was the daughter of an admiral, a fine-looking woman with large eyes and an angled jaw. And his family? A son and a daughter, my lord. Our queen passed years ago, but the prince is to marry soon, and the princess is high priestess of the temple of Isatra, goddess of the moon, Kara said. I tipped my head politely and smiled. And your family, my lord? Kara asked me. Just my father and me, and my cousins, I said. Our conversation was interrupted by yet another royal arrival. His Highness, Prince Marutep. The crowd went on with their bowing. The prince resembled his father, just clean-shaven and blonde-haired instead of white. His shirt was blue, and was open in the middle like his father's. It did not flow all the way to the ground, however, but rather stopped at his hips. I continued my talk with Kara and a few of her friends. I then saw Lord Marantah approach me, with Isotep in tow. The nobles around me caught wind of the approach, and cleared the way, with their heads respectfully lowered. My king, this is the son of the chief of the Sigrunta I was telling you about, Selu, Lord Marantah told his king. Isotep smiled warmly at me. I returned the smile, and bowed slightly. The king would have been Marantah's height, had it not been for his head. When he spoke, his voice was deep. You have the look of a fine warrior. You are very kind, my king, I said with another little bow. From the little I have seen of your kingdom, you should have no shortage of fine warriors. The king laughed heartily. You must see more of us, young man, but I know the look of one when I see it, he replied. You must all join me for breakfast in the morning, you and your cousins. You've met my cousins? I asked. Just two, the red-haired woman and her brother. Charming young people. So, Tara and Solun had already made a good impression upon His Majesty here. I grinned. Then I shall try not to disappoint. The king chuckled. We chatted some more, and when their king had left, Kara and her friends regarded me with heightened respect. How many cousins have you, my lord? Hyru, another young noblewoman, asked. More than 100, I said, then explained myself at their looks of astonishment. Not all from the same grandparents. Only 10 are here now. And they are all warriors? Kara asked, with a slight sense of awe. I nodded. And shamans and priestesses. Our conversation was once more interrupted by the servant at the end of the hall. Her Royal Highness, Princess Ifritah. This time, an air of reverence fell over the crowd. The woman standing at the end of the hall had long red hair. Her cheekbones were seductively round, and her well-shaped eyes were intense. They pored over the crowd and fell on mine. For a few seconds I felt like my soul was yielding up its secrets to her. When she looked away, I let out a small breath. I stared at her for a while longer. My lord? I turned to find Kara and her friends watching me curiously. What was it? I asked. We were just saying that you should try these potatoes, Hyru said, watching me quizzically. Certainly, I shall. Thank you, I said. They were amazing. The banquet lasted for a couple of hours longer. I never got a chance to speak with the princess. I got the feeling that she was intentionally keeping a distance. At the end of the night, I was full and sleepy. Our group chatted lazily as we journeyed back to Lord Marantah's residence, and I met my bed with gratitude. Well, that's all for excerpt number 4. For more of the story, you can listen to the next excerpt or get the book on Amazon. The sequel, Betrayal, is now available. Links down below. Or for more information, you can visit the YouTube channel Formlessness.